It was my first time in my whole life, like I said, just about 18 years old, that I'd ever seen a woman preach the word. I'd never seen a woman preach before because at our church, women didn't preach. So I never thought about preaching or ever thought about doing that. And my only context to speaking was when people asked for their money back. So like I said, this wasn't even a thought. And it was like everything in that moment as I watched her begin to make sense. It was like if I did that, there would be a purpose to all the things that you've actually put in me to do. I remember thinking, if that was what you were going to do in my life, God, then there would be a reason to this. This would be how I could catch fish, how I could fish for men. I got down on my knees before the Lord at the conference for the first time. I responded to an altar call. And it must have been how Peter felt that day is how I felt when I got on my knees and I had that moment of recognizing that you are the Lord. It was a moment of repentance. I am a sinful woman, God. You are God, and I want you to be sovereign in my life. And for the first time in my life, I began to realize that Jesus didn't want to just be a part of my life, but he wanted to be all of my life. He didn't want to just sit at the door with me, but he wanted to walk with me everywhere I went. I was not someone who played sports and happened to love Jesus on the side. I wasn't someone who was a celebrity who happened to love Jesus. I realize now for maybe the first time that I am a follower of Christ, and everything I do needs to flow from that place. I heard Ben Stewart once say, my job is to follow God, and my ministry will follow that. And that just simplifies everything for you. I think many of us get stuck in seeing our life and our lives with Jesus as two separate things. We genuinely do love Jesus, but we don't know how that relationship with Jesus actually plays out when it comes to our jobs, our titles, our majors, our relationships, and all the practical things in our life. Well, practically for me, after that, I decided to move to Nashville because I got asked to speak on a tour, and I thought, well, if that's what I want to do, then I need to say yes to this. I was asked to come on stage on this tour while they moved the stage to set up behind me and talk for 10 minutes about whatever I wanted to talk about. Now, mind you, like I said, had a lot of insecurity when it came around speaking, but I worked super hard for those 10 minutes and really studied and ended up preaching a message about David and Goliath. At the beginning, I pretty much memorized everything I was going to say, so maybe I was more like speaking, but by the end, I was really preaching. Right before I moved there, I had one of my mentors share a word with me. She said, Sadie, before you go to Nashville, I want to speak a word over your life. She said, you need to go to Nashville with the spirit of Hineni. And I'm like, what does that mean? And she says, Hineni means, here I am, God. In Hebrew, it says, here I am, God, send me. But it's more than that. It's here I am, God, with no limits and no distractions, send me. She said, I want you to go with the Hineni spirit. So I went to Nashville. And even just 2 months in, I will say I got the send me part, but I had a lot of limits and a lot of distractions. I was following Jesus, but let's just say, when Peter abandoned his net and abandoned everything he had, I held on to all my nets, all of my gear. I held on to my agency. I held on to my management. I held on to the auditions. I held on to the relationships. I held on to the insecurities. I held on to the anxiety, and I held on to everything that had become super comfortable to me. And one night, I went to church for the first time since I moved to Nashville. Someone told me about a church called The Belonging that meets on Tuesday nights instead of just the weekends for people that tour. So I said, awesome, I can go. And I slip in the back of this church, not really wanting anyone to know I was there, and a woman gets up to preach.